And what I really wanted to talk to you about today was sustainability and your role as professional business advisors in helping clients with their sustainable leadership. So all the research we do gives us some really unique insights into sustainability and our transition to the net zero economy, highlighting some challenges and also some exciting opportunities for professional business advisors. And what we're seeing in our research right now is that this sustainability agenda is gathering pace. I'm sure you notice it in the news every day and the topics that we're talking about. There's a real momentum behind it. But what's really important is that it's just about to reach a tipping point, after which change is going to move very quickly. So we all know 2030 is a key milestone. We've heard from Darshi about the real human importance that we meet the sustainable development goals that the UN have set by 2030. But also we need to think about halving our emissions by then and being on track to be net zero by 2050 or before. And within that framework, this year, 2021, is absolutely fundamental, not just because of COP26 later in the year and the new Biden administration's climate policies, but because this year is the year that multinational CEOs are putting their net zero transition strategies into action. So you will have noticed from the CEO speeches and investor sessions last year, they all set their plans out. This year is the year that we start to see some action, and I think that's very exciting. So the COVID context is also very relevant here. In some sectors, business has actually had quite a good crisis. It's proved a lot more resilient than many business leaders would have thought. Business has surprised itself by how well it has adapted to this massive change. And we've seen a real rise in the S of ESG, the social impact. So business has, to a large extent, looked after its employees and stepped up in ways from developing and rolling out vaccines to ensuring our food supplies. And for the first time in what seems like forever, public trust in business has actually gone up as business leaders have acted in good faith and in some places filled a leadership void left by governments. Leaders have also accepted something really fundamental, which is that business has a critical role to play in society. And business leaders have a newfound confidence in the ability of business to drive rapid change. So this is the year sustainability and ESG more broadly is going to go mainstream. And when it does, the domino effect of change is going to happen very quickly. There's a popular misconception that sustainability is only really relevant to FMCG brands who gain consumer preference from their environmental credentials. But this decarbonisation agenda will leave no sector untouched. Employees are obviously a key driver of change for all businesses, and investors are exerting influence as never before. But the dramatic lever that will start this domino effect is far less visible. It will be the net zero supply chain. So the Scope 3 emissions in the supply chain are often the largest share of an organisation's carbon footprint. So they represent the biggest opportunity for impact. And they're also in some ways the easiest thing to reduce. You can simply mandate it and the direct costs to you are relatively low. So we're starting to see organisations mandate net zero supply chains now, and also to some extent wrap diversity and inclusion into that mandate, as we've seen recently with Coca-Cola. So if companies want to be part of a diverse net zero supply chain, they're going to have to clean up their act, and quickly. So what does all this context mean for you as professional business advisors? Well, to date, sustainability has remained relatively niche in professional services firms, the domain of those engaged in the energy sector or advising FMCG firms, climate risk specialists, or experts in responsible investment fund formation or corporate reporting. But soon, sustainability and that whole ESG and diversity and inclusion agenda will cut across absolutely everything that you do. So I wanted to very briefly highlight 4 opportunities for professional services leaders to consider. First, the size of the net zero challenge cannot be underestimated. The level of business transformation required, especially in carbon intensive sectors, and also in some of the emerging markets, this challenge is of a scale that will put recent decades of digital transformation in the shade. If we thought that level of change was difficult, we're facing something much bigger now. So how will your services support that organisational change for your clients? Secondly, the level of finance that's going to be required for transformation and innovation is going to be very significant, and it will require investors to take a much more nuanced view of negative screening if we're to support decarbonisation and net zero transition, rather than just pulling the plug on these industries. So how will you help companies raise finance, and how will you help investors balance opportunity, risk and responsibility? Third, the intensity of the spotlight on individual CEOs and leaders and the combined expectations of their employees, customers, and investors are intensifying. And given that many companies' transitions will rely on these huge change programs and also technologies that haven't even been invented yet, the transition narrative, that story told by the CEO, is all investors really have to go on to decide who they think is going to successfully change and who won't. So markets are expecting an almost heroic level of leadership. How will you support those individual business leaders and help them navigate the future? And finally, we face an enormous talent crisis. Exponential growth in demand for these sustainability experts means that lack of talent could put the brakes on our progress. So what can you do to build sustainable capability in your team and transfer that knowledge to clients? We need to make this decade really count. So I would urge you all to consider your own sustainable leadership and how your firm can support clients in their net zero transition so we can all get there faster.